What's the most chaotic thing that ever happened to you at an airport? I once tried to be a chill, prepared traveler. I arrived 2 hours early. Pose a humorous question from Reddit, accompanied by an image from the original post. Verse saw this confidence and said, Bo present 5 funny stories, each lasting about 7 minutes. Gent tagged my suitcase to BOI. I encourage viewers to like, comment, and subscribe. Cousins. I asked if my suitcase the following stories are curated to fit your video's format, and said, we'll keep the family together. Security found my sourdough starter. It was ajar, bubbling like a happy swamp. TSA asked if it was a biological. I said, technically yes, but for bread. He looked at the jar. The jar looked back. He called a supervisor who Googled is yeast a pet. They swabbed my starter like it was trying to overthrow the government. A beagle sniffed it, sneezed politely, and sat down, which apparently means interesting, not explosive. The jar and I were released on parole. At the gate, a man in a neck pillow started doing lunges that required diplomatic clearance. He announced he was opening the overhead early to secure real estate. A tiny grandmother stared him down and said, not on my watch, cardio boy. The gate agent used the voice of a kindergarten teacher to explain gravity and fairness, maintain a rapid yet clear delivery to fit each story within the 7-minute timeframe. 880 to Boise. My adopt a conversational and humorous tone to keep the audience engaged. X gates away, the FA incorporate relevant images or animations to illustrate key moments in each story. UDO. On my sprint, I impose rhetorical questions or comments to involve the audience and enhance the storytelling experience. One of them, Pepper Jack, handed me a mini fan and yelled, fly, little bread god. I arrived at my gate glistening and heroic, just as the board flipped to delayed. The crowd groaned collectively, a human accordion. We finally boarded. The overhead bin war began. A man tried to fit a roller bag the size of a studio apartment. He shoved, he reasoned, he rotated it as if performing surgery. The flight attendant said, sir, if you have to use physics you need to gate check it. He insisted it was designed for planes in Europe. We were not in Europe, we were in row 27 watching a man learn humility. Taxiing, the captain came on, folks, slight maintenance issue with a sensor that says our left engine is everything at once. 20 minutes later, fixed. We cheered like we'd invented fire. Then a child 2 rows back asked very loudly, if we fall, do we bounce? And every adult on board recalculated their will. We took off, ascended into a cloud that looked like a sincere marshmallow, and immediately hit moderate turbulence. The cheese bridesmaids, on my flight, sang Is This the Real Life, in harmony. My sourdough starter burped. The seatbelt sign stayed on for so long that the collective bladder of the aircraft began staging a coup. When it finally dinged off, the line for the bathroom stretched into the next time zone. The gentleman ahead of me emerged and announced, that room is smaller than my personal disappointments. We landed. Applause happened, the rare organic clap. At baggage claim my suitcase did not arrive. I imagined it riding a potato in Boise. The agent typed furiously and said, good news, it's in Cleveland asking for directions. She gave me a tiny overnight kit with a t-shirt that said World Traveler and toothpaste that tasted like lemons and secrets. My jar of yeast made it, though, it had survived bureaucracy, altitude, and philosophical questioning. The next day my bag appeared on my porch with a sticker. I visited 3 cities and all I got was this sticker. Same, bag. Same.
What's the dumbest way you accidentally became the main character at work? I sent a meme to the entire company. Not a tasteful one. A raccoon holding a slice of pizza with the caption, me taking ownership. It was meant for my team's group chat after we'd stayed late to fix a bug. But Slack decided my closest friend was actually #global announcements. The message went not to 12 tired engineers but to 600 humans, including the CFO and a board member whose photo makes me sit up straighter. I watched the little, sent, checkmark appear like destiny. I considered faking my own offboarding. Then something beautiful happened, the CFO replied with a raccoon emoji. The CEO added ownership and a flame. Legal posted a raccoon image from a government site, public domain. HR wrote, "We support responsible raccoon behavior." Suddenly the company calendar filled with a placeholder called Raccoon All Hands, and I was asked to say a few words about culture. I made slides. Slide 1, a raccoon with a hard hat. Slide 2, ownership means picking up the pizza and the mess. Slide 3, also washing your paws. I expected to be escorted out by security, instead people laughed in a good way, the shoulders go up way, and someone said, "This is actually helpful." Our head of people asked if I'd lead a values refresher. I said yes because I am a raccoon who cannot resist a shiny opportunity. Then I pushed my luck. I changed the company coffee machine's label to espresso, not expresso. We were a divided land. Facilities replied by laminating the label. I became the accidental champion of vowels. The universe was not done. A week later an intern rotated the office thermostat to Arctic Research Station. The HVAC wheezed, the fire alarm thought about life, and the sprinklers decided to audition. Water lightly rained on a sprint planning meeting. I, a raccoon with a clicker, grabbed our department's emergency binder and executed a fire drill so competent it could have voted. The CEO passed by, damp but optimistic, and said, "I love the energy." By Friday the company store stocked raccoon stickers. IT added raccoon mode to dark theme. Someone put a tiny reflective vest on the office Roomba and named it Racumba. A board member emailed me, "Never stop making the serious slightly silly." I screenshotted it and set it as my lock screen like a teen with a pop star. HR later asked me to stop changing the copy on the mediation app. Take 4 raccoon breaths, did not test well. Did I learn anything? Yes, the line between disaster and culture moment is one well-timed emoji. And that if you accidentally become the main character, use your powers to fix small dumb things, coffee labels, meeting invites, name things like sink to discuss sinking, and the ritual where we all pretend to enjoy iceberg lettuce. Also, triple check where you're sending memes. Especially raccoon ones. Or send them boldly and accept your destiny. Either way, wash your paws.
What's the wildest misunderstanding you've had with customer support? My internet went out during a storm, as if the Wi-Fi saw lightning and chose to pursue a simpler life. I called my provider. The bot asked me to describe the issue in a sentence. I said, "I am offline." The bot replied, "Great. We'll help you sign up." I whispered please to nobody. A human named Casey appeared. I gave my account number. Casey gave me my neighbor's name. We discovered our addresses are the same except for one tragic letter. Casey asked me to power cycle my router. I did. The lights blinked like a small city celebrating a holiday. Nothing. Casey said, "I'm going to run a test on your modem." My modem, flattered, preened. Casey said, "Huh. It says the modem is, you." We both paused. Somewhere deep in their interface, a field had my name under device, router. Am I the router? I asked. Casey said, "According to our system, yes. Please unplug yourself for 30 seconds. I laughed, which made Casey laugh, which made me like Casey. We re-registered the actual plastic router so I could stop being network infrastructure. Internet returned, triumphant. Then the doorbell rang. A courier, a box from my provider addressed to me, the router. Inside, a lanyard, instructions, and a welcome letter. "We're thrilled to have you powering our community." I became emotional in ways I cannot explain. I texted a photo to Casey through the support portal. Casey said, "I am framing this." The next day a tech arrived to install me. He looked at my face, looked at his work order, and said, "You're not a modem." I said, "I contain multitudes." He replaced a splitter, patted the router, and told me to choose a stronger password than password but angry, rude but fair. Before leaving he scanned a barcode on my forehead. kidding, my mailbox. 2 weeks later I received a bill with a discount, employee equipment credit for one router, me. I messaged Casey to fix it. Casey said, "It's fine, you technically worked a shift during the storm." I said, "I provided no throughput." Casey said, "You provided morale." I bought a plant and named it Ethernet. Months later my area had another outage. The company posted on Twitter, "We're aware some routers are experiencing issues." My friends tagged me, "Stay strong." I made cocoa and stood by the window like an old lighthouse keeper. When service returned, I felt proud the way only a human router can. Customer support emailed a survey, "How did we do?" I wrote, "Casey recognized my humanity and my DHCP lease. 5 stars. Please give them a raise and a cookie." They sent me a sticker that says I power great connections. I put it on the actual router because humility is important.
What's the most unhinged thing your neighbor ever did? My neighbor believes the cul-de-sac is an aircraft carrier, and he is air traffic control. He paints little lines on the curb with chalk and calls them runways for recycling bins. If your bin lands outside the lines, he leaves a citation printed on cardstock. The citation has clip art. We call him Clip Art Carl, to ourselves. To his face we call him Carl, which is already a lot. Carl's empire includes a leaf blower schedule, odd addresses, even days, even addresses never, a mailbox flag, height standard, and a newsletter called Cul-de-sac where he reviews everyone's Christmas lights with letter grades. He once gave our inflatable snowman a C+ for lack of thesis. He is both exhausting and, I hate this, entertaining. One spring he announced the wind chime ordinance, only tasteful tones in the key of C. My partner's grandmother had given us wind chimes in G# that sound like a thoughtful submarine. Carl left a note. Sharp keys invite chaos. I considered composing a rebuttal in G# minor. Instead we invited Carl over for lemonade. He arrived with a clipboard and a falconer glove, unrelated, hopefully. We served him the world's most reasonable lemonade. We asked what he actually wanted. He confessed he simply needed projects. Idle hands paint chaotic lines. We made him HOA historian, a ceremonial role that let him inventory traditions, like the block party and the annual debate about potato salad purity. Carl relaxed. The chalk lines faded. He started a birding club and taught neighborhood kids to identify sparrows like tiny celebrities. Peace lasted until the Great Compost Discourse. Carl decided some people's compost had notes of rebellion. He proposed a compost rating system with ribbons. My partner created competing ribbons that said "You tried." A cold war of cute typography ensued. Then a raccoon moved in, not mine, another, and forced détente by emptying every bin like a tiny agent of entropy. The truth stuck. We now have a shared spreadsheet where Carl logs bin locations for posterity, and we log compliments about neighbors who bring in each other's packages. Carl's newsletter, rebranded Culdekind, features pet photos and a bin landing of the week. Our wind chimes stay in G#. He grudgingly admits they are narratively compelling. Last week a moving truck blocked the street. Carl, who once would have Morse-coded distress, instead directed traffic with a pool noodle and a gentle smile. He waved the driver into a perfect reverse like a parking ballet. Someone applauded. Carl bowed. The raccoon watched from a shrub, perhaps proud. I am too.
What's the biggest kitchen disaster you've ever had that still makes you laugh? I attempted a croquembouche because I watched one video and confused confidence with skill. The plan: delicate cream puffs, caramel glue, festive tower, people weeping from beauty. The reality: sugar behaves like a mad scientist. First, the pot au choux. The recipe said, stir vigorously until glossy. I stirred until my soul was glossy. The dough, like a stoic potato, refused to shine. I piped little blobs that looked like punctuation marks invented by someone tired. In the oven they poofed, then took a nap. I opened the door to check. They deflated like dreams. Undeterred, I whipped pastry cream that tasted like success and slightly scrambled eggs. I piped it into the survivors and told them they were chosen. Then came the caramel, which the video host described as amber. Amber, it turns out, is a color with 3 seconds of warning between pale gold and the sun at closing time. I yelped, dipped, burned only 3 fingers, a win, and began stacking puffs into a cone of determination. At puff 12 the structure leaned like a politician's promise. At puff 20 it listed like a listing. I pretended it was intentional, Croquembouche à la gravity. The caramel hardened into edible glass sculpture that fused my spatula to the counter like Excalibur. My smoke detector, a dramatic soprano, burst into aria. The cat discovered caramel threads and dragged one across the living room like a festive tripwire. I kept going because stubbornness is my core spice. The tower reached knee height and achieved a geometry best described as hopeful. I drizzled sugar strands, which formed cobwebs so beautiful I almost forgave their intention to lasso my hair. Guests arrived. I shouted, "Don't breathe near the tower," which is a normal thing to say about dessert. We gathered around to witness the ceremonial crowning, 3 raspberries on top like a traffic cone at Fashion Week. The air conditioner turned on. A gentle breeze whispered through the room. The entire structure sighed, shifted, and, gracefully, respectfully, collapsed into a pile of delicious rubble. There was a beat of silence and then the kind of laughter that cures years. We ate it with spoons right off the parchment, caramel shards and all, like archaeologists discovering a sugary civilization. It was perfect. Later, a firefighter, because yes, my enthusiastic smoke alarm invited guests, knocked to check that we were not actively combusting. He peered at the caramel battlefield and said, with real awe, "Is that a croquembouche?" I nodded, sticky. He nodded back, solemn. Respect. He left us an extra battery, for next time. There will be a next time. I've learned that some desserts are less a recipe and more a team-building exercise between you and entropy. Also that cats should not be allowed near molten sugar, they will unionize. Now when friends ask for the recipe I send a playlist, songs for stirring, songs for forgiving yourself, songs for sweeping up edible glass. I call it crock and roll. The first track is, We Didn't Start the Fire, for legal reasons.